So, alrighty guys, well, I am just so excited for this workshop today. We're going to have so much fun stuff. Crystal is going to share with you the 3 strategies to stop feeling overwhelmed. I'm so excited to dig into those. And then we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. So if you've got questions for Crystal, she's going to get in, she's going to do her presentation, and then you can ask those questions again at the end. So if you're posting questions there and they're not getting answered, just save them for the end and we'll do a Q&A then. And it's going to be a really, really fun time. And so like I was saying a minute ago, I have just been a huge long-term fan of Crystal. She wrote the book back in, I think, 2014. Is that when you Say Goodbye?
It came out in 2014.
Okay. So her book, Say Goodbye to Survival Mode, was 2014. I read it like right when it came out, and I just felt like it was so encouraging and so practical and just so many great ideas for getting organized, but with like so much grace. And that like so spoke to my heart. And so that has always been one of my very favorite resources. So I'm so excited to have Crystal on today to just be sharing some of the strategies for digging out of overwhelm, because I think as women, that is one of the biggest things that we struggle with. And sometimes it's just so hard to even know what is that first step out of that. Or like when things are just chaos and your mind is swirling with 700 things, it's hard to even have a clear perspective to just even think like right at all in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, I'm really excited that Crystal's here with us today. So you guys came to hear Crystal talk though, not me. So I'm going to jump off and then we're going to go ahead and let Crystal go ahead and take over and do her presentation. So take it away, Crystal.
Alrighty, I'm so excited to be with you guys. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really honored that Jami would give me the opportunity to share with you all. And so I'm going to turn my screen off and my video off, and then we will turn the slides on, make sure everybody can see and hear, and then we will get started. Okay, yay, everyone can see and hear. All right, so I am so excited to be with you today and to talk about 3 strategies to stop feeling overwhelmed. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. In this webinar, I'm going to share with you my #1 trick to get more done every single day. I'm also going to share my 4-step process for deciding what to say yes to and what to say no to. I'm going to talk about the most important question you can ask if you want more calm and less chaos in your life. And we're going to have a bonus Q&A at the end. So Jami is going to be joining me for that, and I'm going to answer your burning questions. Now, you're going to want to take notes, and there's just probably going to be a lot that we're going to cover, and it might feel a little bit overwhelming, and you might feel like you are scared that you're going to miss something. Well, rest assured, we will be sending you a replay link that will come to your inbox probably tonight. So if you miss anything, you can rewatch it. However, I want to encourage you not to think, oh, well, there's going to be a replay link so I can just go hop off, because I have a very special offer for those of you who stay live to the end. This is only an offer that we are offering to those who are on our live webinars. This will not be on the replay. So I'll tease that and I'll tell you more about what it's going to be at the end of this webinar. So for those of you who do not know my story, my husband, Jesse, and I got married 14.5 years ago. This is us when he was in law school. We had gotten married, and then 6 months after we got married, he started the law school journey, and we had set this audacious goal that we were going to stay out of debt while he went through law school. So I was working part-time, multiple part-time jobs. He was working part-time, and we were making it work. And then I got pregnant, which we were so excited about, but it was a big surprise to us. And I was so sick that I had to stop working. But I knew that if we were going to stay out of debt and if we were going to keep a roof over our heads, I needed to do something. So I started researching everything I could about making money online. And I tried a lot of different things. And all of that research and experimenting actually turned into a blog called First I had a mommy blog, and then in 2007 I started MoneyStoryMom.com, and then that kind of mushroomed into a business and making a full-time income online. This was something that I never could have dreamed would have been possible in just a few short years. However, I have to tell you that it wasn't all roses and rainbows like some work-at-home success stories you might hear. Not at all. So by the time my kids were ages 5, 2, and newborn, I was also running 3 blogs because I'm very much a go-getter and I have all these great ideas, and a lot of times I don't count the cost. And so I started 1 blog and it was doing so well that I thought, I'm going to start another blog. And then that was doing so well that I thought, oh, I should start a 3rd blog because, you know, that's really smart to do when you have 3 young kids. Yeah, not so smart. And as you can imagine, it wasn't working. I had started way too many things, taken on way too many responsibilities, and committed myself through the roof. And as a result, I found myself completely exhausted and overwhelmed. I would love to know if any of you can relate to this. Have you ever felt like you were just so overcommitted, you'd taken on way too many responsibilities, and you were just done? You were just tired and you're just exhausted. Maybe some of you feel like that right now, or you can relate to have feeling like that at some point in your life. Jacqueline says, of course. Lindsay says, me. And I know this is something that I hear from a lot of women. Caroline says, me. Christy says, me. Haley says, definitely right now. Yes, I know. Caitlin's hair. Jamie, can you imagine? This is what my child would wake up with every single day. And to this day, she still has really thick curls that we are constantly trying to figure out how to tame. But yes, this day, apparently she had been in the Kansas wind and I hadn't used enough gel, but it just makes me laugh. So when I found myself at that place of being completely exhausted and overwhelmed, I wrote this book that came out of that, and it's my 2nd book called Say Goodbye to Survival Mode that Jamie talked about. And I wrote all about that time period in my life when I tried to do everything I felt I had to do. I pulled all-nighters. I pushed myself too hard. I sacrificed sleep, and I burnt myself out. And here's the sad thing. I almost lost my marriage, and I did lose my health in the process of trying to do way too much. I was, for months on end, every 3 or 4 weeks, I would be bedridden with a really high fever and intense pain all throughout my body. And I was struggling with depression, and I was just not functioning well at all. But I just told myself, you know, if I just push a little harder, if I just get a little bit more organized, if I just get a little bit less sleep, maybe I'm going to figure out how to do all these things. But it wasn't working. And I finally got to a place where I simply couldn't do it anymore. I hit rock bottom, and I was in a really bad place. In desperation, I poured out my heart to my husband, and I told him how I was just so overwhelmed. And, you know, I thought that he would give me a pep talk and he would encourage me. And instead, he said to me the words that I didn't want to hear, but that I really needed to hear. He said, "You are bringing this on yourself." Wow. I did not want that. I did not want to be the problem. I wanted this to be someone else's problem and something else that someone else needed to fix. But the truth was, I was the one who was saying yes to way too many things. I was the one who was feeling obligated to take on too many responsibilities and commitments. And really, it wasn't other people so much that were making me feel obligated. It was in my own head. It was my own self that was making me feel this way. I was the one who didn't have good boundaries in place. I was the one who was stretching myself too thin. And as I pondered Jesse's words, the truth hit me. I was the problem, which was exactly what I didn't want to be. However, this was good news because it meant that I could be the solution. So with this in mind, I went on a journey to really discover how to climb out of the crazy pit I had dug for myself. And in my book, Say Goodbye to Survival Mode, that I wrote in 2012 and 2013 and that released in early 2014, I chronicled my journey of hitting rock bottom and the steps I took to climb out of the pit of survival mode and start thriving again. This book, to my great surprise, landed on the New York Times list. It sold thousands and thousands of copies and impacted many women's lives in a profound way. And I'm so humbled, I'm so grateful, and honestly, really blown away. But here's the thing that you need to know. In 2015, about a year and a half after my book came out, I found myself in survival mode yet again. I was completely exhausted, spent, and burnout. Only this time, the burnout had crept in so slowly that I didn't even realize it. I was like the frog in the boiling water. The heat had been turned up so slowly that I hadn't noticed until I was almost dead. Okay, let's be honest. The word dead might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's truly how my soul felt. My inspiration was completely dried up, my motivation was zapped, and my zest for life was just gone. So through a series of significant events over the last 2 years, my life has been dramatically transformed from the inside out. But I need you to know this. These changes didn't start with overhauling my whole life. I was too exhausted. I was too spent, and I was too plain busy to even have time to consider doing something like a big overhaul of my life. Instead, it started with tiny steps that turned into bigger shifts that ended up with me being here where I am now, over 2 years later, in an entirely different space and place. With me truly loving my life to the depths of my soul, with me feeling more alive and happy and content and fulfilled than I ever have. With me having time to invest in relationships, to take time to exercise and eat healthfully, to be present with my kids, to laugh and hang out with my husband. With me having space in my life to volunteer at church and be very involved in my kids' schooling, including homeschooling my second daughter this year. And I love this picture. This was taken earlier at the beach. And not only is the beach just my happy place, but I love because this picture just happened really spontaneously, and it just pictifies my life where it is now. It's not perfect by any means, but I love my life, and I truly am so fulfilled. And because I'm in this space where I have breathing room in my life, it's allowed me to do things like starting new things, which for the longest time I couldn't even imagine really having the space to do anything with all these big ideas that I had. And so I was able to create and produce some new products like this webinar that you are listening to today, and like launching my new site called Your Blogging Mentor and Your Blogging University, time to blog daily, and to oversee the long-term strategy of my blogs and my business. It's also put me in a place where I have time to read books, spend time with friends, and even take a nap some days. I did that yesterday. In all honesty, my workload really hasn't changed, but there are some other big changes that I have made. So what has changed? Well, in this webinar, I want to share 3 strategies I've implemented in the last 2 years that have taken me from living in a place of constant overwhelm to living in a place of peace. So strategy number 1, I stopped over cramming my days. Now, I'm not sure that over cramming is even a word. I really need to look it up in the dictionary, but I am really good at making up words. And this is kind of the word that just really, to me, encompasses how I felt. Just recently, I had someone ask me what my #1 key to success and productivity is. And without missing a beat, I knew the answer. It's that I've started writing a time block to-do list for every single day. Now, I've always been a to-do list girl, but for years, I wasn't intentional with my to-do list. I didn't have a system for all this stuff that was racing through my head. So when I write my to-do list for each day, it would be bordering on ridiculous. I mean, seriously, I had 3 young kids and I would put 37 things on my to-do list, or I would think I'm going to make, I remember this, I would commit to making like 30 meals for my freezer in a 2-day period with these 3 young kids. And I would say that I was going to live blog it. I mean, that's just utterly insane. But I just kept telling myself, I can do this. And I would make these massive lists. There was no way that I could do all the things on the list. And then I would exhaust myself trying. And guess what would happen? Every night, I would go to bed frustrated that I was so far behind. So far behind. There are only so many hours in a day. So switching to making a time block to-do list helps to ensure that I actually have enough time to accomplish what is in my day and what is on my list. So here is an example, a recent example of a time block to-do list. I didn't make this all pretty for you guys. This is just real life here. And so you can see how every part of my day is given a time. And yes, there's some wiggle room here. And yes, some of these things are going to take me a lot less than the time allotted, but it's so that I have a framework for my day. I don't always follow these specific times to a T, but this one thing right here makes sure that I don't try to cram 36 hours worth of task into a 24-hour day. Because as I'm writing out my to-do list, I can realize, oh, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon where I'm at and where I'm writing out my to-do list. There's no way that I can do 5 more things today. Like, the day is ending. And so it helps me be a lot more realistic. Another bonus tip, and this might seem overkill to some of you, but for someone like me, this has been life-changing, is that I rewrite my to-do list halfway through the day. Now, okay, you guys might think, well, that's just taking a lot of extra time and just feels like it's just busy work. Well, for me, it's not, because the act of writing my to-do list and writing a time block to-do list really helps me think through the framework of my day and think through what is actually realistic, what is possible, and helps me to organize my day well. But usually halfway through the day, life has happened, things have come up, and I need to sit down and regroup. And so I regroup and I rewrite my to-do list. And sometimes I will delete some things or shift some things around or move some things to another day. And just sitting down and regrouping halfway through the day really helps me so that I don't, if the train is going off the tracks, it doesn't just completely wreck, but we get back on track so that we can end the day well. Now, you might be wondering how I create the time block to-do list. Well, it starts with 2 systems. System number 1 is my Google Calendar. I use Google Calendar to brain dump all my tasks, my to-dos, and my projects. This is literally my brain. And we took this screenshot a few weeks ago, and this just gives you an example of how I use my Google Calendar. I mostly use it for all-day tasks. And I found that if I don't write things down, my mind becomes an unorganized list of ideas, thoughts, and things to remember. And I become stressed because I'll feel like my life is chaotically spinning out of control. We cannot remember everything that we need to remember. All the important dates, the appointment schedule, the things to do, the tasks to complete, the extra thoughts to remember for later. We're going to forget some things, and our brain is going to feel like it's about ready to explode. So my husband suggested that I go ahead and try Google Calendar, and I really poo-pooed it for a long time because I was like, seriously? I like pen and paper. I do not want to use some kind of technology. But he said, well, you're feeling so overwhelmed and feeling like you can't keep up and feeling like you have so many things swirling in your head. You need a place to put all those things so that they're out of your brain. So I tried it for a few weeks, mostly to prove him wrong. And I actually discovered I really found it to be helpful. So I now use Google Calendar to put everything that I need to remember outside of my time block to-do list for the day. So if I am at an event and I sign up for something or volunteer for something, I will just make it an all-day event on my Google Calendar. If I need to remember someone's birthday, I just did this yesterday. I found out it was one of my friend's birthday on Sunday. So I wrote a reminder to myself as an all-day event on Google Calendar that it was her birthday. If I need to remember something for the business, I write it down and put it as an all-day event. What I love about Google Calendar is that you can not only have multiple calendars that you can see at one time, you can easily drag and drop different things on the calendar so you don't have to rewrite it out. You can make recurring events. So let's say you have something that happens every single week on Monday afternoons, or you need to remember every single day for a time period. You can also use Google Calendar for that, and you can share the calendar with others. So my husband and I, we share our calendars. So if I need to put something on his calendar as well, it's really easy for me to be able to share it with him so then it goes on his calendar. I love this. And this has made such a difference for me to be able to have a place to brain dump everything so that I don't have to remember stuff. In addition to the system of using Google Calendar, I love and have found it really helpful to have system number 2, which is a daily routine. Now, This routine is going to change based upon your season of life, based upon, where it is, where you are in life, and what works for you. But I just wanted to show you an example of kind of what our routine is for this time of our life. Now, this is not a to-the-minute routine. This is not every 15 minutes. This is just the basic time blocks for our days. And this really helps me to have this kind of as the parameters for our day. Now, these are the bones of our day, but because we're self-employed and because there are so many different appointments and meetings and church activities and kids activities and other things throughout the week, every day looks a little or sometimes a lot different. But having these two systems has been such a help for me, because before I go to bed at night, I look at my Google Calendar to see what tasks and to-dos and appointments are scheduled for the following day. And then I also have the framework, the bones of our routine that I use to then create my time block to-do list. So before I write my to-do list, I try to ask myself, what appointments do I have tomorrow? What tasks are on my list for tomorrow? What do I have to get done tomorrow? What would I really like to get done tomorrow? And are there fun things that I should put on the schedule? And then finally, this is a really important question. What does my soul need? This is a question that I started asking the last 2 years, and it's made such a difference for me because I realized that sometimes my soul is craving downtime or rest or like a nap that I talked about, or laughter or time with friends. And so making this a priority for what I'm going to put on my to-do list really helps me, so then I can give myself permission to give my soul what my soul really needs. So once I know what needs to be done the following day, then I write out a time block to-do list and put each of the things on my list in one of the blocks of time. And I try to make sure that there's at least 2 hours for some fun and breathing room. And one of the most important things that I do is that the morning I schedule it usually there's much more scheduled in the morning, and I try to have the biggest priorities in the morning, and then the things that aren't such a priority and don't necessarily have to get done, have those for the afternoon, because I find that I work best in the morning, and I want to have the afternoons and evenings pretty open so that we can have time for family, or if there's an activity or whatever. Now, I want to be really honest and say, for some of you, this just would never work. This would never work for you. This would just feel like overkill and too much. And I get that. And I oftentimes debate even talking about this because I know that this is a system that works for me. But so many people ask me, how do you get done everything that you get done? And so this is my system. But for you, you can take a few ideas from this system to implement them for you. So it might help you to just focus on implementing a basic routine for the day and writing down 3 tasks you're going to commit to getting done that day. For me, having the specified times for each task helps me to make a clear plan for the day and guarantees I don't plan too much work for each day. Because oftentimes, as I said, when I'm writing out my to-do list, I'll realize, you know what? There's no way I can do all of those things today. So I have to choose the top priorities and then delete the other ideas or bump them to another day. It also helps me because when I go to bed at night, some nights, I don't know about you, but some nights I feel kind of really overwhelmed with just life, and it feels like maybe the next day there's a lot going on and a lot I need to remember. And when I can use Google Calendar and then write out my time block to-do list, I can go to bed knowing tomorrow is doable. It's not overwhelming. There are enough hours and there's a plan in place. All I have to do is get up and follow the plan. And I was going to mention on some of my earlier webinars that I did for my audience, some people wrote in, they were like, that's bullet journaling. And I'm like, I guess it sort of kind of is, not the Google Calendar part, but bullet journaling has become so popular in recent years. And so I guess I kind of do bullet journaling, except for I don't do it in the fancy notebook. But anyway, okay, so strategy number 1 I implemented was to stop over cramming my days. Strategy number 2 was I stopped overloading my calendar. Now, this might seem like it's very similar to overcramming your days, but in my mind, it's quite a bit different because it's not talking about your individual day and your schedule for each day, but it's about your calendar and your commitments as a whole. So just like for years, I tried to cram each individual day full, I also used to overload my weeks and my months with way too much. Too many projects, too many ongoing commitments, too many to-dos, too many extracurricular activities. And I struggled for years with knowing what to choose. I just couldn't figure out, how do I know when to say no? And how do I know when to say yes? But then I read about Susie Welch's 10-10-10 decision-making process, and it made so much sense to me. She says that before committing to anything, ask yourself, how will you feel about your decision after 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years? Sometimes we make a decision because it feels good right now in this moment, or it's just too hard to say no in this moment. Your friend is asking you to do something and you feel like, I really should say yes because I don't want to let them down or I don't want to disappoint them. But are you going to be glad you made that decision in 10 months? What about 10 years? So really thinking from this standpoint helps you to not just make those knee-jerk decisions in the moment, but to step back and think, how is this going to feel in 10 months and 10 years? It might mean that you have to get brave and you have to say a hard and awkward no in those first 10 minutes that will save you so much misery and heartache and stress over the next 10 months or the next 10 years. In addition to this 10-10-10 decision-making process, I came up with 4 additional steps I go through before I say yes to anything. I ask myself, is this extra commitment in line with my priorities and goals for this year? Am I absolutely, positively, and totally excited about this or making this commitment? So when someone asks you to do something, are you in that moment really excited about saying yes to it? Okay, that's good. But then I also want you to think about when that thing actually comes up. So let's say that your friend asks you if you can watch your kids next week. And in the moment you're thinking, yes, I'd love to watch your kids. I want to help my friend. Okay, that's good. But then also think next week when that day comes, do you have a lot going on? Is that going to cause stress in your home? Is that going to make it so that you aren't able to invest in your own kids or invest in your marriage, or you're just going to be stretched too thin by saying yes? So are you absolutely, positively, and totally excited about doing that thing next week? Will you be? If not, then I really encourage you to consider whether you should say no. Now, I'm not saying that you should not help your friends or whatever. As someone was just asking me about this the other day, and I was saying, here's what I found. When I say yes to fewer things, I'm able to say a much better yes. So I'm able to really fully pour myself into those few things and do a really great job of those few things that I say yes to, instead of doing a really poor job of a bunch of things that I've said yes to and being really exhausted and crabby in the process. Also, this goes along with that. Do I have the time, capacity, and energy to do this and maintain a restful pace of life? We rarely know what a restful pace of life is in this day and age. And busyness is kind of exalted as this incredible thing, and successful people are all busy, and you need to be busy if you want to be a successful person. But I really want to ask you, is that how you want to live your life? Do you want to just be so busy that you need a vacation from your life? Is that how you want to live your life? For me, I realized that no. I wanted a restful pace of life. This still meant that I do a lot of things, but I do them at a slower pace, and I can do them with more depth because I'm choosing to do a few things well and choosing based upon, do I have the time, capacity, and energy to do this and maintain a restful pace of life? I also ask, is my spouse fully on board with me saying yes to this opportunity? I find that my husband is such a good sounding board for me when it comes to commitments, and he knows me better than anyone else. And so coming to him and asking him, are you excited about this? Do you want me to do this before I say yes, really helps me to sometimes weed out the things that I might want to do, but it's really going to put a strain on my health, or it's going to put a strain on our family. So here's what I'm discovering. Once I've gone through the 10-10-10 analysis, and then I've asked myself these 4 questions, I am saying yes to so many fewer things. I just realized that I don't need to say yes to so many things. And I was just having a conversation with my small group at discipleship group at our church, and they were talking about how there's so much in life, so many emails, so many requests, so many whatever. And I was saying, when you say yes to fewer things and you're able to pour yourself more into those fewer things and do a really great job, it also frees up opportunities for other people. And that's the thing that I found. When I realized that I don't have to say yes, it opens up a space for someone else to say yes. And I would actually be taking that away from them if I were to say yes to that thing just because I felt obligated. So it feels really amazing. Now you might be saying, well, that all sounds good and well, but I'm so tired and exhausted and overwhelmed that I can't even think past 10 minutes from now. Well, if you're in that place, I want you to just set aside everything we just talked about. And I want to encourage you with this. I want you to ask yourself, what's the one thing that is going to make the biggest difference in my life right now? What's the one thing that's going to make the biggest difference in my life right now? This is such a clarifying question for me, especially when I feel overwhelmed by life. And then based upon your answer to that question, ask yourself, what's the next best thing for me to do right now? What's the next best thing for me to do right now? Maybe that's that you're supposed to read to your child, or take a shower, or call a friend, or clean your kitchen, or make dinner, or write a blog post, or run an errand, or work on a project, or take a nap, or hang out with your husband. What's the next best thing for me to do right now? Don't try to conquer the whole world or 7 different tasks in the next 5 minutes. Just pick one thing that you're going to focus on next and give it all you've got. Do that next thing, finish it, and then ask yourself again, what is the next best thing for me to do right now? And then do that. Now, what about all those other things you feel like you have to make a priority? I want you to keep a running list of all those other things swirling in your brain. And when you are thinking about those, write them down on your list, but only focus on a few things and really just focus on what's the next best thing for me to do right now. And I think of Jesus. He was such a great example of being fully present where he was, not being rushed, not being hurried. And what would it look like for us to be fully present where we are right now, instead of feeling like we need to rush ahead and our brain is rushing ahead to the next place, the next project, the next task, the next to do. I want to challenge you to really pick one area or one focus idea to hone in on at a time. Instead of feeling like, well, I really need to teach my kids that, and I really need to organize that part of my house, and I really need to exercise more, and I really need to be getting up earlier, and I really need to be researching that, and I really need to be figuring out how to make that food item from scratch, and I really should start a garden, and I really should volunteer. On and on and on and on and on and on it goes. I want you to hone in on what's the one area that's going to make the biggest difference in your life right now. Focus on that. Then when you've learned that thing, or you've implemented that, or you've organized that, or you finished that, or you have, developed that habit, and it just feels like it's a part of your life, then you can add something else in. But don't try to overhaul your whole life overnight. That is how you're going to live in the place of overwhelm. And think about it. If you start working on these priorities one at a time, and you add one new one every month or two, in a year, you will have made a lot of headway, and you'll be doing it step by step by step. So the 3 strategies that I implemented: number 1, I stopped overcramming my days. Number 2, I stopped overloading my calendar. And number 3, I started becoming a joy chaser. Now, do you guys notice the progression here? I had to stop, and then I could start. It wasn't until I freed up the space in my life that I could actually pursue joy, that deep, abiding joy. For years, my mantras were things like, get things done, be productive, use your time wisely, don't waste time. And I live by these phrases probably since the time I was 11 years old. I've just always had a really driving personality and been an overachiever. And I look back over the last 24 years of living by them, and I see that, you guys, I got a lot done. I was a class act doer, but all that doing up and did me in, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Now, I've always been a to-do list kind of girl, and I've always started each day with a detailed list of all my tasks. And like I said, there were so many tasks that I would put on my to-do list that were much longer than there were hours in the day. And most of the items on my to-do list were tasks I felt I had to do, not things I was looking forward to. Then I read a book that changed all of that for me. And it might surprise you what book it was, because it wasn't a book on time management. It was actually The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Now, this book has gotten a lot of press, some very positive and some very negative. And I will be just really upfront with you and say that there are some things in this book that I totally don't agree with. And there are some things in this book that are just plain weird. I mean, hello, talking to your socks and thanking your items in your home. I don't do that. And I don't really understand that. But this book wasn't anything like I expected it to be. Unlike other decluttering books, instead of focusing so much on what we need to get rid of, the author encouraged readers to zero in on what they want to have and keep in their life. She challenged people to visualize their home and what they want it to look like. What colors, what looks, what style, like how do you want your home to feel? What do you want to surround yourself with? Instead of what don't you want to have in your life, what do you want your life to look like? For me, this sort of flipped some switch in my head that shone a light on why I'd sunk to such a burnt out emotional state. Because instead of her motivating me to overhaul my closets, Marie Kondo's perspective gave me permission to take a hard look at the state of my soul. Not only had I not realized that my life was full of obligations to me, but I hadn't realized that I had a choice. I just felt like I had to do all these things in order to be a good wife and a good mom. I needed to do X, Y, and Z. And the list was really, really, really long. I didn't see it as that most all of those things were opportunities. I could choose, whether I had a garden or whether I didn't have a garden. I could choose whether I spent time with my kids doing these things or doing these things, whether I had my kids in outside activities or whether I didn't have them in outside activities. And on and on and on it went. I could choose. Life wasn't full of obligations. It was full of opportunity. And I had a choice. I could ask, what do I want my life to look like? We should be choosing what we want to keep, not what we want to get rid of. Instead of just going through my closets or my calendar or my commitments asking what I should get rid of, I needed to back up and start at the very beginning. What do I want to have in my life? When I stopped looking at life as being one big torrent of obligations, it gave me the freedom to see the beauty of opportunity all around me. And instead of writing out my daily to-do list with a list of what I have to accomplish, what about starting first from the standpoint of this is what I get to invest my day in? It completely shifts how I approach my day, and it immediately makes me feel calmer and less frantic. Now, in addition, in The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, Marie Kondo encourages you to go through your home by category. She suggests that you get out all the items in that category and put them in one place. For instance, get all of your books from all of your bookshelves and put them in a big pile. And then she asks you to do something kind of strange. She tells you to pick up each individual item and ask yourself, does this item spark joy? Okay, if you think that sounds odd, stick with me. It might seem tedious and maybe even a little bit dumb. But really ask yourself, do I have stuff in my home that is there for no reason than just because? Because someone gave it to us, because we've always had it, because we got a good deal on it, because 100 other reasons. Are any of those reasons because it brings you joy? I started asking this question about everything in my life, not just my stuff, but also my commitments and my to-dos, and it rocked my world. Instead of asking myself, how can I get more done? How can I be more productive? I'm asking, what would spark joy for me? What would spark joy for my husband? What would spark joy for my kids? How can I be a joy chaser as the mom in this family? And I started looking for things that would bring joy and life into our everyday lives. I realized that I love writing and live video and marketing. These things bring me joy. Wearing purple and cute shoes and pancakes and fresh flowers spark joy for me. As does being in the sunshine, listening to good podcasts, time with life-giving friends, laughter, tea, and music, and on it goes. And I realized for my kids, what things spark joy for them, what things spark joy for my husband, and we've all become joy chasers in our home. A little thing is that I bought yellow shoes. Now, I hadn't worn the color yellow since I was probably 4 years old. And I always thought, I don't wear the color yellow. But I had seen these yellow shoes and I saw them on Amazon for $17. And I thought, you know what? I think those would maybe spark joy for me. And I bought them and I realized that I love them so much. Every time I look down at my feet when I'm wearing them, it just makes me happy. It makes me smile. It reminds me of the beauty and the color that God has put in our world. He didn't make a drab black and white world. There is color. There is, right now, our trees are turning colors and it's so beautiful. And I just think the God who created all of this, he wants us to love beauty. He wants us to be a joy chaser too. I've become much more adventuresome and spontaneous, and I felt so much less of a need to keep doing a host of things I had been doing just because. It's given me the freedom to make hard choices about how I spend my time, and it's given me permission to do things that refuel and refresh me. So this question, does it spark joy, has been such a pivotal part of my journey. And I've really been on this journey of sort of redefining my life, asking myself, what do I want to have in my life instead of feeling like I have to do all these things. There are so many other parts of this life transforming journey the past 2 years. I've been untethering myself from being chained to a worth based on productivity and people pleasing. And I declared 2015 my year of rest. And 2016, and I declared it my year of rest, and it has just changed my life. That whole entire year for me to really say, what would it look like to pursue a restful pace of life? Because all I've known is just this productivity driven, get things done, do kind of personality. That's all I've known. What would it look like to pursue a restful pace of life? And so in 2016, that's what I explored. And I realized so many things about myself. And I realized that saying no was an amazing thing. And it was a gift. And instead of seeing obligations, I could choose to see things as opportunities. I shut out a lot of the noise on the internet, the noise just in life. And I said no probably 100 times every single month. I've slept more. I let myself not even set an alarm clock some mornings. And that's amazing for someone who always got up really early. I've laughed more. I've developed a few new deep friendships. I've stopped obsessing so much over things I can't change. I've tried new foods, new styles, new drinks, and new experiences. I've started volunteering at church in the children's ministry, and I'm co-leading a women's small group at church. And like I said, those are yeses that I was able to say because I said no to so many other things that were just busy work. I was able to say these yeses and really pour myself into them and love them because they weren't a drain, they were a joy. I've given myself freedom to spend money on things just because, which if you know my site, it's called Money Saving Mom. And so I'm very frugal, but realizing that I don't have to talk myself out of certain purchases if we have it in the budget. And it's something that's going to bring me joy. It's okay to buy that little candle or the discounted flowers or the yellow shoes. I've become a lot more spontaneous. I've started getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night. And I realized that I actually have a choice to be able to get more sleep. I don't have to have my house clean or perfectly clean or everything in order. That sleep is more important than doing all these things that I thought were so important before. I function so much better when I get enough sleep. I've loved deeper, I've trusted more wholeheartedly, and I've given myself space to feel instead of stopping things. And as a result, I've done a lot of ugly crying, and it's been so healing for me. I'm happier and healthier and braver and more confident and more fulfilled than I've ever been in my life. And as I've walked this journey, and people have watched me on the internet, I haven't said a whole lot about it, but I've just shared in little pieces here and there. And so many people have asked me, could you please share more about this journey and the specifics of like, how did you actually get from where you used to be, where you were so productivity focused and so driven and just constantly just driving and doing and being busy, to this place where you actually give yourself permission to take a nap and to just love life and to buy yellow shoes. Well, for a long time, I didn't want to share because I felt like I just needed to live it. I needed to live it and make sure that it was a deep change that had happened in my heart. I wanted to quietly live it out and make sure that it was going to stick. But the past 2 months, I've been working on a course where I open up and share really vulnerably about my journey. I actually wasn't planning to even write this course about what it turned out to be, but it just all poured out. And so the Say Goodbye to Survival Mode course is a 7-day journey to break free from burnout. And it's like the sequel to my book, Say Goodbye to Survival Mode. This course is the fruit of a journey of deep soul digging and life transformation. It wasn't easy to go on this journey. It required me to make a long series of difficult decisions, and I outlined some of that in this course. I talk about how it caused me to have to shift my mindset entirely, and I talk about how it was the result of many, many tears and much struggle. In this course, I open up about my journey in a very real and authentic and vulnerable way, and it's really different than anything that I've ever written before, because usually I write very practically, like, here's your 10 steps to whatever, but in this course, I go really deep and talk about what I had to unearth in order to actually break free from burnout. It wasn't just sticking a bandage of better systems, it was actually being able to break free from burnout. In the course, I'll just briefly go over what the lessons are on. Lesson 1 is about when I stopped being excited about life. And I share about a question that one of my friends asked that started me on this life-transforming journey when I realized that I didn't love my life anymore and that I was stuck in the pit of survival mode again. Lesson 2 is all about when death stares you in the face, and it's about my cancer scare and how it jolted me to see the truth that I didn't love my life, and how do I really want to be living my life? Is this really all that life is cracked up to be? And if I were to die in a year from now or be given a diagnosis that I only had 3 to 6 months to live, what would I do? What would I change in my life? Lesson 3 is all about when I didn't want to read that popular book, and I dived more deeply into the life-changing magic of tidying up, and I talk about how that whole question of does it spark joy shifted my viewpoint and really changed me and helped me to become a joy chaser. Lesson number 4 is all about when I almost sold my blog because I was at such a place of burnout that I almost up and sold MoneySavingMom.com, which is our family's livelihood. And I was in such a bad place that I was just ready to walk away from it all. But then I realized that I bought into the lie of more. And so in this chapter, I talk about what I did about it. Lesson 5 is all about my year of rest in 2016 and how it changed my life and how I realized that I had an addiction to busyness and I was using it to numb the pain and cope with life and feel better about myself. Lesson 6 is all about when I stopped drinking coffee. Now, I need to make it real clear, I'm not encouraging people that you have to stop drinking coffee, but this was a big, big, big deal. I never dreamed that the person who absolutely loved coffee, would give it up. But I talk about my health journey and how the changes that I made really impacted my life. And then lesson 7, I wrap it all up to talk about how the last 2 years and this journey that I've been on has made me really into a different person that I don't even recognize myself many days. So the Say Goodbye to Survival Mode course, when you purchase it, you get immediate access to 7 video lessons with me sharing all about this journey, one for each day of the course. You'll also get daily personal reflection questions to help you process well on your own journey to break free from burnout. You'll get some of my favorite recommended resources to go along with each day's lesson. So if you want to dive deeper into that topic, there's resources for you, and a PDF workbook with all of the lessons so that you can download and print. One thing that I wanted to mention is that this course is self-paced, so you can start it at any time and you'll have lifetime access to all the course downloads. Now, you might be saying, I'm so overwhelmed with life that I don't have time to take a course, and I completely get that. And I wrote this course specifically for women like you who feel like you are so overwhelmed and you need help, but you don't have time to get the help that you need. And I thought about what would have worked for me. And so each of the video lessons are around 15 minutes long, and you can watch them while you're making dinner or pull them up and listen to them like a podcast on your phone while you're driving. So you can multitask when you are watching or listening to these videos. And I also made it so that you don't have to read any of the lessons in the handbook or on the course site. We put together all the lessons. They're all on the course site. They're all in the PDF download, but I made it so that most of the lessons are pretty much word for word what I share in the videos. So if you just listen or watch the videos, you're going to be able to get the essence of the course without having to read anything. But you can also choose to read the lessons if you're more of a visual learner. I also walk you through the reflection questions at the end of each lesson. So you can just listen and let me walk you through them so that you don't have to pull out the workbook. You don't have to write anything down if you choose not to. You can just listen to them as you are making your dinner or folding your laundry or cleaning up the house or in the car line at school or whatever. You can just listen to me walk you through the reflection questions and then mull over them. And again, there's very little course homework. I made it so that it's super easy for you to be able to experience this course and to be able to break free from burnout without having to spend a lot of time doing it, because right now you just don't have that kind of time probably. And you can go at your own pace. So maybe you go through one lesson every day, or maybe you go through one lesson every week or every month. It's your choice. You go at your own pace. We put together some fun bonuses. So when you purchase, you will get these 3 bonus downloads. My top picks in faith, family, fashion, and fitness. So if you're wondering what I love, these are some of my favorite things. Also, 5 Days to a Better Morning. This is an ebook that will help you to start your days well. If you want to have a better morning routine, this ebook walks you through that process. And then finally, this is a fun download that we put together, 33 things I do almost every day that make my day so much better. And you might feel like, whoa, that seems overwhelming. But let me tell you, when you look at this download, you'll be like, oh, these are easy peasy and I could do some of this, or I'm already doing this. And this will just help me if I do this consistently to make my day so much better. So many people have asked me if I could do life coaching or help them have their own year of rest or streamline their life. And they want to find the same freedom and joy I found. Well, I put together Say Goodbye to Survival Mode. It's like hiring me to be your life coach to walk you through this journey, but it's at a fraction of the cost. And so when you purchase the course today and you'll get instant access to everything, and it's only $27. So I'm really excited for you to have the opportunity to go through this and to experience the same breaking free from burnout, that I have the same life transformation, and it's just $27, because my heart is always to make things as affordable as possible for everyone so that you can access it and don't have to spend a whole lot of money in order to be able to access this. So it's just $27, and there should be, if you're watching on the replay, there should be a link below the replay that you can click on to purchase it, and it will only be available at this price for the next 3 days. It's regularly priced at $37, but just because you have been on this webinar and you're watching this webinar, we wanted to give you a special offer. So it's just $27, and that will give you access to the 7 video lessons, the personal reflection questions, my favorite resources, the PDF workbook, and also the 3 bonuses. Jami is going to jump back on. Thank you so much for joining me for this. This was really fun. And I will start in on your questions. And we'll see if Jami is able to hop back on. Desiree says, my life is chaos and can't wrap my head around a new way of life at the moment. What is the one most important step to affect change? I would say that you pick the one thing that you feel like it's going to make the biggest difference in your life over the next 2 to 4 weeks. So if your life is in chaos, like we talked about, what's the next right thing for you to do? So what is that one thing? Maybe, so what's the one habit that you want to develop? Maybe that would be that you get up 15 minutes earlier, that you write a to-do list for your day. That's just like 3 things that you're going to do every day. Or maybe it's that you start exercising, or maybe it's that you're going to go to bed earlier. So just pick one habit that you are going to implement, and you're going to say, for the next 3 weeks, I'm going to consistently do this. And if you can, find a friend who can serve as your accountability partner that you can check in with. And it's amazing. Those little habits, they can make such a difference and add up to such life change over time. Yay, Jami, I'm glad you made it back on. Do you have any thoughts on what you feel like would be what is the one thing that would make the most difference for someone who's just feeling completely overwhelmed with life?
I think for me, when I get to that point is I came in the middle, so I don't know what you said, but for me, it's writing out those big priorities for my life and writing them out. What's my number one priority? Okay, God is my number one priority, and then my husband, and then my kids, and then outside activities, and getting those written down. Like, even I know that list, but getting it written down on paper, there's something so clarifying about that like, I'm like, duh, I know that. And then you see it on paper and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, my kids are a priority this week. I need to say no to those other activities, or whatever it is. It just has such a way of clarifying what you need to work on next. And it doesn't always make the day easier because you still have 50 things to do, but it's kind of just that piece of knowing, okay, these are my priorities for right now. And I think that helps me again and again to do that.
Paige asks, how do you handle interruptions? And I think she's probably referring to because I have the time block to-do list, and is to pad my list. So if I think something's only going to take me 15 minutes, I'm going to allow 20 minutes. Or if I think something's going to take me 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm going to pad an extra 10 or 15 minutes on most of the items on my list, just because I know there's going to be interruptions. I plan for interruptions because they are going to happen. And then if they don't, then it's I have 5 extra minutes of free time. I can just, so that's really helped me. And then to make sure that there's time in the afternoon where I don't have stuff planned, so that I allow that margin room in my day, so that when the stuff comes up, that I can, if a friend, we need to just talk on the phone, or she needs to come over, or I need to go and help my child, run an errand for whatever, that I have the time in my day. And also rewriting my to-do list halfway through the day helps me, so that if the morning has just been completely off the tracks, I can be like, okay, regroup, and we're going to start over again. And that really helps me. Any thoughts, Jami?
No, I agree. That's something that I've started doing too, is just getting that to-do list out, and then I will physically rewrite it, even if it's very similar. I think the act of rewriting it out makes a difference. It makes you think it through a little bit better.
Yes, I so agree. And it's what did they say? 5 minutes of planning, there's some quote will save you hours in execution or something. And I really find that if I just jump right in without a plan, I'm so much less effective than if I sit there and take the 5 minutes to actually make a plan. Okay, this is a great question from Michaela. She said, do you believe that there are times that God calls you to something that doesn't automatically bring you joy? Staying up with a crying newborn, difficult family members, yes. How do you look at these kinds of situations in life? And this is a great question. And I'm not saying that you should only do things that make you happy, and there's never going to be anything in your life that's not going to make you happy. But when I cleared out all the clutter of stuff that was just draining me and it wasn't what God had called me to. It was just stuff that was just draining me that I felt obligated to. When I cleared all of that out of my life, and then I said, okay, I'm going to be a joy chaser. What is going to feed my soul? What are things that are going to bring me joy? What is God calling me to do? And so when I have those things in my life that bring me joy and making that a priority, then those things that aren't so fun, like having to have that difficult meeting with someone, or having to deal with a child who's having a really bad attitude, or like last night, like my kitchen was really messy because my daughter, bless her heart, she loves to cook, but like she is not clean like me. And so it was like she had made cupcakes and the kitchen was still just really messy, and I don't enjoy that. But it's like when you take the time to pour into yourself, then when you have those situations, they don't frustrate you and overwhelm you. They can just be like, okay, I gotta do this. Like, this is the next big thing for me to do. I'm gonna clean up my kitchen. Tomorrow we're gonna talk more about talk to yourself, but she's already in bed and I need to clean this up. And so I think for me, that's really helped me, that if I'm running completely on empty, then those types of interruptions or difficult things become so much more frustrating and overwhelming than if I actually am taking time to refresh myself. Then I'm in a much saner place to be able to deal with those hard things. To get up in the morning, what's your secret to getting up early and alert? Well, Jami, I think you might get up earlier than me now. So do you have a secret for getting up early and alert?
Yeah, morning time is rough, but every single time that I have gotten up before my kids in this season that I'm in right now, I have always been so thankful. So I push myself to get up. I am so stinking tired. I hate it. And then I have a little bit of time to refresh, to recharge, to be in God's word, to just kind of get my head on right, even if it's 10 minutes. And then I hear my kids kind of running down the hallway and I'm just ready for the day. I might still be tired, but because that refreshes me so much, it pushes me the next day to do it. And so what I found is when I get out of the habit of that, it is so much harder. I hate my mornings. I'm not a morning person. I'm so not a morning person. So I never thought that I would be the one to get up early in the morning. But seeing that effect on my day, like I'm a happier mama. Like I greet the day better, even if I'm tired. Even if I felt like that extra hour or half hour would do me better, most often it does not. Now, I do have to say, when you have a newborn, when you have a sick kid, you have a teether who's up in the middle of the night, there are times when you got to give yourself grace. So I have a 7-month-old right now. My morning time has been hit or miss this entire year. And that's totally fine because you do have to give yourself grace in those different seasons as well. So there are mornings when I have to get up when the kids get up because I need that sleep. But I also know that my morning will be a lot smoother if I can just kind of force myself up. And the biggest thing in that is setting a good bedtime and getting to bed on time, which is not easy for me because I'm a night owl by nature. But I think that's the biggest thing for me. And then having my coffee pot set to start at 6 a.m. so that I know as soon as I drag myself out of bed, my coffee's waiting for me. That makes a big difference. So.
Yeah, and I think I would just encourage moms, as someone who has pushed hard early because I felt like it was the right thing to do, I would just say, you know your body. And if you are feeling completely exhausted, maybe getting up early in this season of life is not a smart thing for you. And I had to give myself grace to feel like I needed to recover from so much lack of sleep. And I talk about this in the course where when I stopped drinking coffee, I realized that coffee had become a mask for my tiredness. And no wonder I was having so many physical issues and so many health problems. It was because I was not getting anywhere near enough sleep. So figure out what works for you. And I would say that for some people, you're going to be your best. For other people, it's okay. Sleep in. And there's going to be another time when it's your ideal time of the day. Use that time well. And maybe that's before you go to bed. Maybe that's your ideal time. Or maybe you do get up early, but then you take a nap in the afternoon. But I would just say, as someone who has hurt myself significantly by not getting enough sleep, you will never go wrong with making sure that you are getting enough sleep, because I'm so much happier, I'm so much healthier, I'm so much better of a mom, I'm so much more productive when I make sleep a priority. And so for me, that means not getting up really early at this season of life. I actually get up about the same time that my kids get up, but I stay up later at night after they've gone to bed. And that's when I now do my exercise and plan my day and get some of those things done that I used to do in the morning. So figure out what works for you and do that. Kara, this ask a question that this would you, Jamie. She said, what are some ways you've incorporated exercise and weight loss goals while having small children? She says, I have a 14-month baby girl that I'm constantly running after, but I also have health issues that require healthy eating and need for weight loss. Do you have any suggestions for her?
Okay, so exercise, Crystal's way better to address that because I'm absolutely horrible. But having 5 kids in 4 years has definitely been tough on me physically and nutritionally. And so that is something that I have really had to just really deal with this year, because having baby number 5 has just depleted my body. And when she was born, I had just had twins 18 months earlier. And so my body was just done. And so one of the biggest things that I have had to make a priority this year is eating right. And actually taking time to eat, because I would just skip lunch because I'm so busy, and I'd have a cup of coffee for lunch. That's going to really do anything. And so that has just been writing it on my schedule. So on my daily to-do list, eat lunch is one of the to-do items, because it has to be, or I miss it. And so that means making sure I'm eating a full breakfast and making sure I'm eating a full lunch. Dinner's easy because I eat with the family, but I would so scrimp on those. I wasn't eating enough vegetables. And so for me, I have just had to make that a priority. And that might mean that the house is a little bit messier because I am sitting down to eat a full lunch, but I've had to make it a priority because my health has suffered so much from having all these babies so close together, which I'm so thankful for, but it has taken a toll. And since I'm so happy to say that since I've been making this a priority in the last 6 months or so, it makes an incredible difference. So I think my encouragement is that you got to make it a priority, and it might need to take the place of some other things for a season. But as mom, as wife, as, caretaker, you have to take care of yourself. You have to make sure that you have the energy to take care of everyone else. And so it is not selfish to put that on your schedule and make it a priority, maybe even above other things. And the same thing falls with exercise. Although I've been terrible at that, I need to get better with that.
Well, and I would say for exercise for me is figuring out what works for you. And so I would get up and I would get on the elliptical every day, and I would listen to podcasts and do things that I love to do while I was on the elliptical, and that was something I really loved. And I also use Spark People. I don't even know if I think they're still in existence, but there's probably some great apps now. But when I was trying to lose my pregnancy weight, I would use Spark People, and every day different things. And for me, that was the motivation that I needed to just stick with it. And so figure out what kind of accountability works for you, whether that's a friend, whether that's some kind of app, whether that's a chart on your fridge, whatever. But then also figure out what you love when it comes to exercise, or what you're going to enjoy the most. So for me right now, I am running, but I'm running on the treadmill that we have in our garage. And I do this at night after my kids have gone to bed. And that is when I have a few channels that I'm subscribed to on YouTube, and I watch those then. It's just that's my fun time. That's something that really, I just enjoy it and I look forward to it. It's quiet. The kids are in bed, and that's my time that I'm also taking care of me. So if you compare your exercise with something that you love, maybe you go to the park and you walk with a friend, or, figuring out if it's watching a YouTube video, or whether it's watching a show, or whether it's listening to podcasts, or maybe it's just quiet, but pair it with something that you love so that it's something that you look forward to and you're going to be much more apt to do. Rebecca asked a great question. Now let me see if I can find it. I think it was, now I lost it on here, but it was the concept of, what do you do when other people are disappointed in your decisions, or how do you deal by saying no, you're going to let someone down? And I think it's a great question. And I think first off, you have to know who your identity is in Christ, because you're always going to disappoint people. You're always going to let people down. I think with me, with blogging, every single day, I let people down. Every single day I get emails and comments and letters in the mail sometimes from people who are offended by me, they're disappointed with me, they're upset with me. And that, I have to, look at that and pay attention. Is there something here that I need to learn? But a lot of times it's just that someone else is putting their obligations on me that I don't need to hold, because I don't have a relationship with those people. I don't know those people. And so with that, yes, but if it's somebody that you're good friends with, I think sharing with them, telling them where you're at in life and being really honest with them. And so for instance, when I said I was going to have a year of rest, I just told people really clearly, I'd be like, this is my year of rest and I'm really focusing on only doing a few things well. And I really need to cut back because I'm tired. And so putting that out there and being honest with them, but also being okay with if they are disappointed in me because I am trying to be wise with how I use my time, I feel like that's not someone that I want to have a really close relationship with. If I can't be honest with them and tell them where I'm at and say, I need to say no because I just can't, I don't have the capacity or just would be too exhausting for me. It's just not a good fit for me right now. That's not someone that I'm going to want to really foster a close relationship with, are not respecting my boundaries. And I also think that it's going back to, knowing your identity in Christ. And if you know that you are loved and redeemed and chosen by Him, then it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what other people think of you. As long as you're gracious and kind and honest, that's what matters. And they have to, their response is their responsibility. Okay, Audrey asked, time for yourselves without feeling guilty. I've tried so hard to not feel bad about me leaving for a weekend this weekend. I've never done this and I'm fighting feeling guilt every day. I think the thing for me is I will say whenever my kids were little and my husband was saying, you need to do something for you. And so we came up with this plan that I was going to go out to Panera on Saturday mornings and he was going to watch the kids. I had never left my kids really with anyone because we didn't have family nearby and he was gone and busy with work. And so I hadn't even left my kids with him really. And it was so hard for me the first time because I was like, oh, are they going to be okay? And then I'm like, he's their dad. He's their dad. Like, they're going to be okay. But it took me a few weeks to even be able to leave them for a few hours on Saturday morning. But what I discovered is that I was so much happier and so much more organized and so much more at peace when I would go out and when I would take time to pour into me, have that quiet and have that space and have that breathing room, I would come back a better mom and a much better wife. And so when you take that time to refuel and refresh yourself, it's not selfish. It's pouring into you so you can better pour out to others. So when you feel that guilt coming on, I would ask yourself, where is that coming from? What is this guilt about? Like, is this guilt something that you're putting on yourself? Or other people putting this on you? Is this from God? I'm going to say in most instances, it is not going to be from God. And really talk to someone who knows you well, talk to your spouse, be really honest about it and have someone else speak the truth to you, because sometimes you just need to hear the truth from someone. You're kind of getting into that pit of feeling the guilt and the shame and that cycle of having people remind you, no, this is the right decision and you've made this decision because of X, Y, and Z. So I'd love to hear from you, Jami. How do you take time for yourselves without feeling guilty?
That's something I've definitely had to wrestle with, because with so many little kids that are so physically demanding at this point, it is really, really tough. And if I'm taking time for myself, it means something else is being left. And so that's something that's really difficult. And I think for me, I've just gotten to the point where I realize that if I have more energy, if I'm refreshed, I'm going to be able to take care of everyone better. And when I am short on sleep, when I am frazzled and have no energy, then I respond very poorly to my family. I'm not able to take care of stuff. And so really at the end of the day, it's an essential part of my homemaking, because I need to have that energy. And sometimes it's not even just physical energy, it's that mental energy. And so something that I've done for several years now is, like, as soon as I put the kids down for a nap, then I will read a chapter or two of a book, because that fuels me up so much. I used to feel so guilty about that because I felt like I needed to be doing the dishes. I needed to get on my blog and do something. But I've realized that even 20 minutes is not a big deal. 20 minutes to take time to refuel myself makes all the difference. And that goes along too with me being able to get up in the morning and kind of have that time to refresh and refuel. And so I have to look at it that way, that ultimately it is serving my family and my home when I take a little bit of time for myself, and it helps me let go of that guilt a little bit better. I did want to say, ladies, really fast, I know Crystal has been cutting out a little bit here and there, so we are going to include these Q&A questions on the replay. We're not quite sure if her audio recording is going to pick up on that or not. And so I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit more clear so you guys can go back through. And I know somebody said your kids are going crazy right now. So yes, when you get the replay video, you're going to be able to listen to all these Q&As, and hopefully Crystal's audio is a little better. You guys can always email me afterwards with any of these questions, and I can kind of type some of them out and clarify a little bit. And I know Crystal has a ton of resources on her blog. So if you're missing a couple of these questions, don't even worry about it. We'll give you guys some resources if you didn't hear quite one of the answers or not, but they will be on the replay. So I just want to let you guys know that.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you, Jami, so much for the opportunity to do this. It's been such an honor, and I really enjoyed getting to spend time with you all. And I'm excited to hear your stories of how you are breaking free from burnout. And I always welcome hearing from you. So feel free to email me or contact me on social media at any time. I love hearing from everyone.
Yes. I did want to mention that I have gone through this whole course and I have loved it. So when Crystal's book came out, several years ago, I was wondering why she didn't have a course on this subject. Like, I have always thought this would be great, and she's come out with other courses that I've loved. So finally, she told me she was working on this course, and I was so excited. And then she emailed me and said, you know what? This course turned out so much more personal. Like, I hope you still like it. We'll see. So I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So I started going through it. And what she has throughout the course is her, like she said, it is her stories throughout it. And I was blown away because it helped me just connect with Crystal so much more. And even though my story and my journey has been so different from hers, I could identify with her feelings through that of overwhelm and digging out of that survival mode, because my survival mode looks different than hers has been. And yet those principles still apply. And so there are things that I learned about Crystal's story that I had no idea, or I've watched her emails the last several years, and you're kind of seeing a different side of that story. And it was just so helpful to me to have those stories and that connection. And then she brought it all back around to that practical application. And so I emailed her back after it and said, oh my gosh, I love it. And so I highly, highly recommend her course. If you've been through any of her others, the Make Over Your Mornings, Make Over Your Evenings, and Your Year, it's very similar. She's on there teaching, and you guys know Crystal's a great teacher. And so I have really, really enjoyed it. It's definitely one of those that I'm going to go through again. And like she said, it's one of those that's really easy. I just had it play while I was cooking, while I was cleaning, while I was doing stuff. And so I just had it play in the background because I don't have a lot of time to stop and sit through courses that are very time intensive. And so it's perfect for me to be able to just put on in the background and listen to. And I was kind of wondering, like, is this course going to be worth it if you've already read her book? But I feel like she kind of takes the principles and kind of the thought behind that and then adds in her journey since then. So I feel like it's like that addition on top of the book, like the next step of saying goodbye to survival mode. And so I love it. I can't believe she's offering it for $19. And I didn't even know these bonuses she was throwing in, which are awesome. And then when you get to check out, that $10 offer for Make Over Your Mornings is totally worth it, because Make Over Your Mornings is awesome. So anyway, I just wanted to get in here, let you guys know that. You guys know that I do not recommend anything that I do not personally love and value. And I tell you the good and the bad. So I'm really excited about her course, and I would love to hear your guys' feedback. So as you get into the course, email me back and let me know what you think. I would love, love, love to hear. And then like Crystal said, you can email her. You can find more resources on her blog. But her course is just very, very encouraging and practical, but it's not too overwhelming. So that's the thing, right? Like, if you're already overwhelmed, you don't want to do something that's going to take 7 hours to get through and it has all this homework. Like, you need it to be simple. And I feel like it was simple and yet really actionable still. So it was a really good kind of balance for me there. So anyway, just wanted to let you guys know that. And I've had so much fun. So thank you, Crystal, for doing this. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much. And we'll leave the course offer up. It's got 3 more minutes left. And so we're going to go ahead and stop the webinar here, but we'll leave the offer up until it's the timer runs out. And then look tonight in your email inbox. You will get a replay of the webinar, and hopefully the audio worked. I'm sorry for the issues there, but hopefully it worked. And so thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful afternoon and evening.
Bye, guys.